Hello dear friends, welcome back to my channel. And today I want to address kind of a small topic, but it's actually pretty big. It was small in the course that I was taking. A small part of this course was like communications, being a good communicator, and a small part of that was how to talk to people who have English as their second language. And the advice, the instructions that we were given were so outrageous that I just couldn't help but make a video about it. So, what we were told, or what we read rather, was if you're speaking to an English as a second language person, speak slower, enunciate your words properly. Avoid complicated expressions, avoid idioms. Basically, talk to them as if they're a retarded adult or a 5-year-old child. And I mean, I've seen countless immigrants, people whose first language is in English, have English as their second language, complain that they're treated like they're dumb or retarded. Then in fact, anyone who ever complained about people speak too fast, I don't understand them, they just don't adjust. I've never heard a complaint like that, but I've heard many times people complain that they're treated like they're retarded, and they're spoken to as if they're retarded just because they have an accent. So just know that this is the worst advice you can give, you can follow with a person who has English as their second language. I've even, and it looks like the thicker the accent, the more people talk to you as if you're retarded, as if you don't understand them. But, okay, first of all, I want you to know that understanding, if you've ever spoken any language, any second language, understanding is the easiest part. I mean, even if in your first language, let's take Russian. In your first language, I can understand War and Peace. I can understand all those works by all those classical authors. I can understand them perfectly. But would I be able to write them or write something like that? Maybe I would be able to, but not all native Russian speakers. So my point is that understanding is so much easier than speaking. A person may speak and plus your speaking is affected by what kind of language you've been speaking the past few days. I mean, during quarantine, I've been watching many Russian movies, and my English isn't that great when it comes to speaking, but understanding is not affected. It's so much easier. The first thing you do in a language is understand, and then your speaking starts catching up. So understanding is really not a problem. And because it's hard for people to understand, especially for those people who've never spoken a second language, but understanding is so much easier. It rarely presents a problem. But yeah, I've seen countless people complain that just because they have an accent, they're treated as if they're intelligent. I guess people now understand why. Before I thought, wow, this is so mean. People really treat us as if we're dumb. But now I understand that after this terrible training, I understand that they don't treat us as dumb. They just they believe that they're doing a good thing. Don't. I've seen a big Facebook post by a Russian girl. She has a thick accent. She studied in Canada. She has a degree in pure math. She's extra intelligent. Her writing is awesome, in English. And she wrote this long post, why do people treat me as if I'm dumb? And they explain, when I ask a question, they explain, for instance, how to get from point A to point B. They explain it to me, speaking slowly, as if I had mental issues or something. So, yeah. My advice, the more helpful advice would be that no matter how the person is speaking, speak normally to them. Don't change anything in your speech. Just speak normally to them, and then if you notice that they have trouble understanding, only then kind of adjust a little bit, and then depending if they still don't understand, then adjust a little bit more. But assume that they understand you perfectly. Also, about not using idioms or any complicated expressions. In fact, it is when a person has English as a second language or any language as a second language, it is helpful for them to hear idioms and all kinds of complicated expressions. And trust me, they understand from the context what the person means. And then, at least I remember how I was. Sometimes some of the idioms and like those cool expressions, I still remember how I learned them. And mostly it was in high school because I just went to a regular Canadian high school and thankfully, nobody was adjusting to me and they just spoke normally. And they used like some pretty, back then I thought, pretty cool expressions. And this is how I learned them. And actually, there's this myth in every language, especially like among people who study English and like they have their first language, that English is so boring, it's so technical. Like in Russian, there's this myth, and I'm pretty sure in other languages too. Like, oh, our native language is so expressive, it's so powerful, and then English is so boring, it's so technical. And I mean, I had that myth when I studied English, like back in Russia. But then I started reading my first books. My first books were children's books that my mom brought me from the States. And then I moved on to Harry Potter, and this is when I realized, wow, like English can be so expressive and so eloquent. But if you don't use those expressions, like I'm pretty sure a regular person doesn't speak like J.K. Rowling in Harry Potter. I doubt even J.K. Rowling herself speaks the way she speaks or writes Harry Potter. But still, if you avoid any idioms, idioms is like put all your eggs in one basket, like stuff like that, that has a literal meaning, but then it's used in a figurative way. So if you never use those expressions, when you talk to English as second language speakers, like how are they going to learn ever? I actually think, I mean, it's very nice when people are trying to adjust to you and the intention is good, but I can't help but think that the reason there are so many people who have lived in Canada for so many years and they still like suck at like English is because people have been adjusting to them too much. Yeah, it's an unpopular view, but I sincerely believe it's part of the problem. Everybody is like, oh, you can pronounce in whichever way you want. Oh, we're going to adjust and not use complicated language around you. But then how's the person ever going to improve? And I believe even when it comes to pronunciation, you probably will never sound like a native speaker, but any person, like no matter what age they came to Canada at, they can still improve substantially. It's within everyone's power. But because people don't like push them at all, there's no incentive. And because they speak to I read an article in Russian. And many Russian people, I don't know, I'm pretty sure when it comes to other nations, it's happens too. But because I don't know other nations' languages, I only know Russian, I'm going to speak for the Russian speakers, and it's a huge area of the globe. Among Russian speakers, there's this idea that Americans and like Canadians English speakers are dumb. Even though honestly, an average American, and I'm pretty sure even among the Americans, like some of them still believe that about themselves, but I can assure you, in fact, that an English speaker on average is more educated, more informed, not because they're smarter genetically, but because so much stuff is written in English, like the scientific studies. Like, I mean, English is the lingua franca of the world. So you have access to so much more if you speak English. And I mean, even from experience, an average English speaker is much more informed and, I don't want to say like formally educated, but knowledgeable than an average Russian speaker. And they're going to hate me for this, but honestly, this is true. And I mean, we're talking about averages here. But because the English speakers adjust so much to people who speak English as a second language, there's this myth that English speakers are dumb. And I mean, it it kind of was my conclusion on my own, but I then read an article about this in Russian that Russian immigrants or Russian-speaking immigrants are convinced that English speakers are dumb, and that is because the English speakers talk to them in that way. So if you overly over-adjust to English as a second language people, it will harm them in many more ways than it will benefit them. And then those kinds of myths are born. There has to be a balance. And I think at this point, the balance is shifted in the direction of adjustment too much. And then, so you adjust to them, but at the same time, if they don't improve, you don't ever get to speak to them as equal. So it kind of harms them in the long run. You kind of outwardly, you think, oh, I'm treating them with understanding, but in reality, like if they don't develop, you will never ever have an intellectual conversation with them. You know, you still kind of you don't let them improve, if you know what I mean. And hopefully you know what I mean at this point. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say. If you see or encounter someone who speaks with an accent, don't adjust immediately and don't speak to them any differently than you would speak to anybody else. Only if they don't understand, and trust me, they will ask you, like if they don't understand, they will ask you to slow down. I mean, if they had problems asking a person to slow down, to, you know, just repeat something, they wouldn't be here. I mean, people who are here, they've had to ask more serious questions, and they've had to ask many more questions, and they've had to put themselves in many situations that are more embarrassing or, you know, awkward than this. So don't assume that they don't understand, and you should just like foresee their needs. They will. I mean, sometimes you have to foresee the needs of people, but this is not one of those times. So yeah, just speak to them normally, and then you will see if they understand you or not, and then adjust little by little if they don't. But chances are they will, because again, like I said, understanding is much, much, much easier than speaking. Thank you very much. See you soon in the next one.